Welcome. This week, we're getting ready to go over lessons 77 to 80. Before we get started on the lessons, I want to take a moment to encourage you guys. I remember when I was homeschooling, we get to this time of year, where we had the holidays, we had time off, and now we're getting back going. And then there's just this feeling like, oh, can we be done already? But we're not. We're a little over halfway done. Remember, your kids are going to pick up on your mood. You need to be careful and make sure that you are getting fed, that you are being nourished, that you are getting rested. I know some of you are in seasons where that's really, really hard. So I'd like to encourage y'all to keep persevering. Make sure that you are doing something to feed into yourself, and not in a selfish way, but just in a way that when your gas tank is full, the way I look at it, then it overflows for others. As I tell my kids, I don't have a lot of grace today, so just please bear with me. My goal is to have that tank full, because when I'm got that tank full, it's a lot easier than to work with my children. So do what you need to do. Fill that tank, especially this time of year, especially for some of you. I live in a state where it's a mild winter, but some of you are where it's really cold and it gets dark really early. Yeah, I feel for you. But just know you're not alone. There's others out there like you. Just keep on keeping on. So let's get started and see what materials you're going to need for this week. You're going to need your tiles, the abacus, the place value cards, along with the math card game book, a dry erase board, your worksheets, the part whole circle set, coins. These could be the coins that came in your kit, or if you have real coins, either one, and the abacus tiles. Lesson 77, regular names for the tens. Yay! Guess what? You're going to go back to calling the numbers by their regular names. I told you it wouldn't be forever that you had to call it with the math way. Just know some of y'all's children are going to still want to use the math way. That's okay, but you need to make sure you're using the regular names. In the warm-up, it is encouraging you to work with your child on seeing the beads in their mind, imaginary beads. For some of your children, this is going to be easy and they're going to do just fine, but some of your children might struggle with this. Do you know that not everybody has the ability to see pictures in their minds? Yeah, it's really interesting. I'm not one of those. I'm very visual and I need pictures to see things, but some don't. So if your child still needs to use the abacus to move the beads because they can't visualize it in their mind, let them use the abacus. In the section about reviewing ordinal numbers, one of the benefits of that is that it really helps children understand where we get the third, like in 13 and in 30, as well as the fifth, like is in 50, because we're saying the second, the third, which is 3, the fourth, the fifth, which is 5. So it comes in handy, especially now that we're going to switch over and start calling the tens by their regular names. We're going to talk to the children about how TY also means 10. But we don't want to overemphasize saying it. So you don't want to say 30, because it could get a little confusing for kids and may think you're saying 13. All right, so be careful. Don't overemphasize it too much. And we will be getting to the regular names in teens, but that will not be until lesson 81. On the second page, there's an explanation for you, the teacher, that says to continue with 30 and 50 only when the child is successful with names 60 through 90. So make sure your children really are successful with the words 60 through 90 before you go into 30 and 50. when we get down to regular names for 20. One of the things, and you'll learn more about this when you're teaching, when we get into the teens, is that they used to pronounce two as twu. They really did pronounce that W right after the T, twu. Well, that's how we get 12 because it comes from two, twu. It's a weird way of saying it, but I guess, if we were raised saying it that way, it would make sense, or seem normal, but we don't. So it's a funny name. Kids think it's funny too. So on the place value, you've been doing it where we say 510. Now we're going to say 50. 50. Remember, don't overemphasize the T. We don't want to sound like teen, but we do want them to see the two syllables, 50, because we still want them to recognize that when this number is in the tens place, there's going to be another place right after it, one place after it. So this week, you're going to actually be playing the same game, but just different variations. And that's the Can You Find game using the place value cards. Today, you're going to do more of the simpler one where you're going to just look for the 20, the 30, the 40. And remember, you're using the regular names. Your children already know what these cards are, but they've been used to saying it the math way. So now we're going to go back and we're going to play and use the regular way of saying the names. Your child is also going to still work on the 100 chart. Now, this is included in the lesson. And remember, they're supposed to be moving a bead as they count the number, and then they write that number in their 100 chart. This could be something that they could do either before math or maybe later on in the evening, just at another time, so then it doesn't make your math seem like it's taking a long time to finish. Lesson 78, partitioning 50. Look at the objectives. It lets you know that you're going to be using the regular names today when you're combining your tens and ones. Notice also in the warm-up, you'll be asking your child to count from 10 to 100, the math way as well as the regular way. I like how this lesson ends with partitioning 5 and then partitioning 50. I hope your children see the pattern that's involved in this. Lesson 79, counting and composing tens to 200. This is where your coins are going to come in play. You could use the coins that came with the math manipulatives, or I prefer to use real coins if I'm able to. So if I can find 10 or 20 dimes, then I will use those. And knowing ahead of time, maybe you can go out and get enough dimes if you want to use the real money. On the second page, when you're counting by tens to 200, notice what it says to the teacher. I remember back when I was doing this, we weren't supposed to say and, like 110, because that was like, oh no, that's going to be a decimal. But we don't do that anymore, really. If we're going to use a decimal, we're going to say 1.10 or 1.35. So things have changed a little bit. And if you want to use the word and when you're saying larger numbers, like 145, you can. This last activity, recording the numbers, and it shows how you're working with 110. Remember, you're going to enter things into the abacus. They're going to compose it with the place value cards. But switch it up. Let them put a number into the abacus so you can compose it with place value cards, because that way they can let you know if it's correct or not. It helps them to understand it as much that way as it is when they're building it too. Last lesson for this week, lesson 80, adding tens. For your activity problems for adding tens, you could either use your dry erase board to make your part whole circle set, or you could use one that's in the page protector. As you see in that last activity on the first page, you're going to use the regular names for 10, but know that if your child struggles a little bit, it's okay to revert and use the math way for saying the number, but go back and re-say it using the regular way, because we want them to get used to the regular way. But it might take a little bit to go back, 50, 5 tens, for them to know that 50, fifth, because it's, that's a hard one. You don't hear 5, but remember the fifth number is the number 5. Anyway, for some children, it's a little bit of a struggle. It's okay to go back and forth, but really emphasize the regular name. One of the story problems on the second page uses 2 different types of birds in the story problem, gives them their formal name, and then it says how many birds. Some of your kids, no big deal. They understand both are birds. For some of your kids, when they hear birds, it's going to throw them off a little bit. Just be aware that could happen. All right, we're done. We got another week that we're completing and you guys are going to get to do. And remember, your attitude and the way you approach this time of year and teaching with your kids can have a huge impact. Make sure that you are getting refreshed and refilled so that you can give to your children. It's really important. Join me next week as we go over lessons 81 through 84. Until then.